Hey everybody! So today I want to talk to you about hermit crab care. So first off, I just showed you, actually the picture that just went by was one of my hermit crabs, but I am going to take one of them out just briefly, as long as most of them are buried right now and you don't want to disturb them. But if I walk over there and see one out, I will show you and then I'll put it back. But then we'll start talking hermit crab care. Alright, so this here is Sheldon. He's gonna pinch me. Hold on. Get in. Alright. He's very difficult to hold on to because he comes out of his shell quite far and has pinched me. But yeah, so there he is. Alright. There you go. Alright, I'm gonna go put him right now. Well, he can walk around on my phone, or on my phone. Here, I'll show you. So here he is walking around on my laptop. Alright. So let's start looking at lifespan of a hermit crab. Their lifespan in captivity can be, with optimal, perfect care, 40 years. It's like having a parrot. Though most crabs will not make it that long because of care that is not appropriate. My son's step siblings won hermit crabs from the fair last year, and they only lived 2 months. They didn't have deep enough substrate. They did not have, I think they had extra shells, but they didn't have deep enough substrate for molting. They didn't have the heat and humidity. They died. And that is a common occurrence because people don't know how to take care of them. They think they're cool and, you know, they don't do the research and they're not in proper conditions. In the wild, they can live 50 to 70 years, and most, 99.9% of hermit crabs are wild caught. It is very, very, very tricky to breed them in captivity, which is why the majority of them are wild caught. Claudia and Sheldon are male and female, and I can guarantee you no babies will be happening. So, and if they do, I'll be stunned. I'll be in like the Guinness Book of World Records. Alright, so sizes. Young crabs under 2 years are 1/2 inch across and can fit on a dime. So my crabs are at least 2 years old because none of them are that small. Full-grown adults that are 25 plus years old reach 6 inches and are larger than a softball. None of mine are that old. The average size is 2 to 3 inches, and that's between 5 and 15 years. So that's approximately where Sheldon and Claudia are. And I feel like my other two that are a little smaller, they're probably a little bit less. They're at least 2 years old, but maybe less than 5. It could be 5. So, yeah. Housing, you definitely want to have everything that you need for a hermit crab before you bring it home. You don't want to house it in something inappropriate. for fear that something's going to happen to it before you get everything that you need. So a minimum tank size is going to be 10 gallons for small crabs. If you are fortunate enough for them to get full grown, you know, softball size, you're going to need a bigger tank. But obviously when they're 25 years plus, and mine are like right now between 5 and 15 years, it's going to be a long time before I need to upgrade their tank size. They're in a 10 gallon. And it says a minimum it would be 75 gallons for when they're fully grown. But the chances of them getting to that size, I'd like to think that mine will live that long, but you know, you just never know. Something can happen. Climate, 80 to 85 degrees and humidity levels of at least 75%. Purple pinchers can handle slightly lower temperatures down to 75 degrees, and purple pinchers is what I have. Substrate, a lot of places will say that you can use play sand or, you know, something like that. I would steer clear of sand. I use Eco Earth. It holds humidity better. So yeah, some people will mix the sand with the Eco Earth. I just use straight Eco Earth. Some places will tell you you have to mix it with sand. And to me, I feel like that's just a sales pitch. They'll make more money because you're buying two different kinds of substrate. Eco Earth is plenty good enough. It needs to be kept moist, not dripping, but damp enough that if you squeeze it, it's going to hold its form, but it's not going to drip water. It needs to be deeper than they are big. It needs to be deep enough that they can completely bury themselves. They need to have dechlorinated water, fresh dechlorinated water. I use distilled water, and I get it from the grocery store for like less than $1 for a gallon. And they also need to have salt water, which I get from the pet store pre-mixed. I have a 5-gallon container of salt water. That only cost me like $3, $3 to $5. And it's going to last forever because they only use the salt water to soak in. But they do need to have both. You need to have the distilled water that they drink. They'll walk in it too. But they drink that and they soak in the salt water. As for their diet, they are omnivores and they are scavengers, so they'll eat anything, pretty much anything that you offer them. You always want to offer them more than one thing at a time so that they can pick what they want to eat. I have found that for my crabs, their favorite things are dried banana slices, and they probably like actual banana slices as well. You don't need to provide a lot because they don't eat very much. They can actually go a few weeks without eating. Which is, you know, is great for the fact that there's not going to be a lot of waste. But I provide them with commercial pellets. There's always more than one thing in their dish. So commercial pellets, algae wafers, a little blob of peanut butter, excuse me. I've put popcorn in there, unsalted, unbuttered popcorn. I've put turkey in there, cooked turkey, a little piece. I've put a spinach leaf in there, and I have found, and cooked noodles, and I have found that they love the cooked noodles, the cooked macaroni noodles, they love the peanut butter, they love the popcorn, and the banana slices. So they're going to pick what they want to eat, and they still really don't eat a lot of it. There's always leftovers. that you want to switch out because you don't want their food to go bad. But yeah, they do not eat very much, so feeding them is very cheap. Let's see. If you're giving them any veggies, make sure that they are pesticide free. No pesticides or fertilizers. Yeah. So, molting. They molt to grow, so they absolutely need to be able to do this, and they can only do this if they can bury themselves. So if your substrate is not deep enough, they cannot molt, and they'll die. Molting can take weeks or months. So if you have hermit crabs and they've buried themselves and you haven't seen them for a very long time, never fear, unless you're smelling a really horrible smell coming from your tank, they're fine. If you notice that they smell terrible, that something smells terrible from your tank, at that point, they're probably dead. Something is dead. But if you don't smell that, they're fine. They could be molting, and you don't want to disturb them. They will bury under the surface, and they will not return to the surface until they're finished molting. You don't want to disturb them. If you dig them up while they're under there, you can kill it if it is molting. So you just want to leave it alone. So if you have made plans to do an entire cage cleaning, an entire crab attack cleaning that day, and your crabs, at least one of your crabs is buried, if you've got more than one crab, which you should, 2 should be the minimum because they're social. But if any of your crabs are buried, you need to postpone that cleaning because you cannot do it when they're buried. They could be molting and you will cause a problem. You need to provide multiple shells in the enclosure for when they're done molting. You know, they do that to grow. So once they're finished, they're probably going to want to shell shop. I've already had one shell shop and switch shells because he was already in a shell that was too small in the store. And in the store, the substrate's not deep enough, it's not moist, he wasn't able to do what he needed to do there. So within the hour of me putting him in my crab habitat, he switched shells. He is buried right now, so he very well could be also molting. Let's see. Do not provide glazed or painted shells. These are toxic to crabs. It doesn't seep into the shell, but since they need to soak, and we provide them salt water. If they're soaking in the salt water is going to corrode the paint or the glaze, and then it's going to end up in the water. And since they walk in the water to soak, then they're soaking in these toxins. So you want to avoid glazed or painted shells. Polished or natural is the way to go. The most popular kind of shell that they like to move into are turbo shells. They've got the widest openings. Most of what I have in there are turbo shells. Let me see. For maintenance, food should be changed daily to prevent mold growth. I usually just change out the stuff that is perishable. I don't worry so much about the pellets or the algae wafers or anything like that unless it's gotten wet. If it's something that's dry, like the pellets or the algae wafers, I don't worry about that so much. But if I put in noodles or if I put in peanut butter, anything that can mold needs to be changed out. You don't have to give them very much at one time. They don't eat very much. They really don't eat very much. So I've got 4 crabs in there, and I put in a little bit of a few things, and there's always leftovers. Always leftovers. So they are very cheap to feed, which is nice. Water bowls should be changed when they're dirty, especially the fresh water, because that is the water that they drink. They will get some of the substrate in their water because they walk into it. The salt water doesn't need to be changed quite as frequently because that is the soaking bowl, so there's always going to be some dirt in there. Spot cleaning, you're mostly going to remove the uneaten food, remove any waste if you see it. But they don't produce a lot of waste because they're not huge eaters. So you really, like I had mentioned with the Pac-Man frog, you can get away without doing an entire tank cleaning for a few months. Same goes with the hermit crabs. So it's awesome. If you need to clean the glass on the inside, use white vinegar. Monitor substrate daily for signs of dryness and spray with fresh water as needed. So I use the distilled water that I put in there for drinking. I have in a spray bottle, and when any of the substrate on the surface looks like it's drying out, I spritz it. And that is an everyday thing. Substrate almost never needs to be changed unless it becomes oversaturated. So if it is oversaturated with moisture, it can mold. But I haven't had that problem, and I don't oversaturate it. I wanted it to be like when I put it in, I squeezed it out so that it held form but didn't drip, and then I broke it up and put it in. So it's damp substrate, and then I spritz the surface. And I can always tell that even though it's drying out on the top, I can tell that it's still damp underneath, but I still spritz the top to hold humidity in. If the tank is not oversaturated and you're feeling strongly about changing it, you have to wait until all of your crabs are topside. They can drown. They have gills, but they are not water breathing. So if they are in too deep of a dish of water, and they can't get out, they can drown. The gills are for breathing the humid air. If the air is not humid, they can suffocate. So that is really important. They love to climb. So I've got a plant in there. Unlike with the Pac-Man frog, the plants are more for your benefit, something pretty to look at. Whereas in the hermit crab tank, you're going to want to give them things to climb on. They do love to climb when they are out. Several times I have seen Sheldon on the screen top hanging upside down because he has climbed up onto the bendy bridge, up the plant, and then he grabs a hold of the screen top, and then he hangs there. And I've usually had to take him down because once they're up there, it's like, I've never seen them come down by themselves because I don't think they can figure out that they have to. I mean, maybe one day I'll just kind of monitor him and see if he can come back down on his own. But they do love to climb. They really do. So provide things for them to climb. Provide things for them to hide. The bendy bridge is just like in there like that, and they hide underneath it when they're not buried. And a couple of them are actually under that bridge and buried. So, yeah. Trying to think of something else. They're very easy to take care of. They really are. You just got to maintain that heat and humidity and provide them with enough substrate for burying themselves so that they can molt, and providing them shells to move into. I feel like the most complicated part is providing them shells for them to move into. But other than that, I don't think I have much else. So if you have any questions, if I forgot anything, please let me know. And yeah. So they've been really cool to watch, and they're going to be observational. You don't want to take them out all the time. They can pinch, and it is stressful for them to be handled too much. So they're going to be more observational, but you can take them out. They can get used to you as well. Mine, Sheldon and Claudia, are very bold. They're not very shy, so even when I pick them up, they will come out of their shells, and that was how I was able to sex them, because it's their underside on their body where you figure that out. My other two are very shy, so when I pick them up, they won't come out. So I haven't been able to sex them yet. But over time, they may get used to me and not be quite so shy. But, you know, they're going to be more observational than anything else. But that's perfectly okay. It's just something to enjoy observing and taking care of, just like with the Pac-Man frog. So, I'm very long-winded because I'm over 20 minutes in. So I'm going to shut up, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk with you later.